power, but the top option is that in Renato Nunez in the 4 spot. Nunez has a ton of power, and he's that right-handed hitter that we need to match up with the splits.
2 balls, no strikes to Renato Nunez. That's tagged. Nobody's going to catch that one. Way back and gone. Renato Nunez. Way to go, Maryland Lottery. There's a deep drive. Way back. And Nunez has his second homer of the game.
Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this 13-game slate on Fanduel and Draftkings. If you tuned into the last few videos, you'll know I recently dropped some merchandise and I'm going to be doing a giveaway this week. All you have to do is leave a comment down below of your favorite pick to hit a home run tonight, and then follow me over on Twitter at KJK DFS, and you'll be entered for a chance to win a free KJK DFS t-shirt. My merch store will also be linked in the description. And then I've also launched a baseball package over there on Patreon. It's a package that'll give you my power rankings, my cheat sheet, and exclusive access to my Discord chat where you'll be able to ask me questions up until lock. So if you're interested in that, it supports me. I greatly appreciate it. And I also think it's going to give you guys some really good content to improve your lineups. So with that being said, enough of the promo stuff. Let's start breaking down this slate. As always, I like to start out by looking at pitchers we're going to want to put in our lineups today, and I like to do that by looking at the K rate. So when looking at the K rate today, the guy that tops my sheet is that in Trevor Bauer. Bauer is a well-known name around the league now. He's established himself as one of the best pitchers in the league, and he's settled in as the ace for Cincinnati now. He comes in with a 29.5% K rate. He's pretty solid across the board. He's got that 12.7% swinging strike rate, the 3.68 Sierra. His ground ball and fly ball stuff isn't, the greatest, but we can live with it because of the K rate he has. He displays a 31.9% K rate against righties. And then moving on to lefties, he's got a 26.9. So, we obviously prefer him in matchups where the other team has a right-handed heavy lineup. And when looking at the team he's taking on today in the Milwaukee Brewers, they do have quite a few lefties in there, but there are some lefties with high K rates. We got Justin Smoke, Logan Morrison, Omar Narvaez, all guys that can strike out. And then Christian Yelich is an elite hitter, but he's got his fair share of strikeouts in his approach as well. So when looking at Bauer's price tag, you're going to pay for him today at 11.4 on FanDuel, top of the slate, but for good reasons. Looking at his numbers, it makes sense. He's our top elite option on the slate. Not the best matchup, but you take the numbers that he has and you apply it, with the K's in the middle of this order, and he's going to go out there and get the job done for you for sure. But it's just a matter of if you're willing to pay that 11.4 price tag for him in this matchup. Might be some guys we can target in better matchups. Second on the list is that in Matthew Boyd. He comes in with a 26.2% K rate, a 12.2 swinging strike rate, but the ground ball and the fly ball stuff is pretty bad. He's a high strikeout, high hard contact rate pitcher. He's got a 25.9% clip strikeout rate against righties, and then moving over to lefties, he's got the 27.5. So a guy we prefer against left-handed heavy lineups, and he's taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates today, who, when looking at their lineup, have quite a few righties in there, and Boyd's a 110 favorite, so he's not the heaviest favorite on the slate. So while he does come in second at a K rate, I don't really know if he's going to want to be the guy to target. So, it can be matchup dependent. So we're going to want to pick guys in good matchups today. And outside of Bauer, who's our top option on the slate, the second guy that I'm going to mention when looking at his matchup is that in Griffin Canning. Canning comes in as a 162 favorite and taking on the Texas Rangers, who definitely have a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. A ton, really. Once you get past the top of the order, you're dealing with guys with all high strikeout rates. After the 2 spot and Elvis Andrus from Sin-Chu Chu, it really picks up. A guy in Joey Gallo who absolutely crushes baseballs, but he does strike out a ton. So, that's the appeal of Canning in this spot. And when looking at his numbers, he's got a 25.2% K rate, a 13.8 swinging strike rate, which is really good. That's the second on the slate on my sheet. So, Canning's a guy who does give up a lot of hard contact. Look at his ground ball and his fly ball and his hard hit rate. He's a high strikeout, high hard contact rate guy. And I wouldn't even say high strikeout because he's got a 25.2% clip. That's not elite, but it's definitely respectable. And looking at his splits against righties, he's got the 25.8 K rate, and then lefties, he's got the 24.5. But you can see across the board, his hard contact rate and his WOBA and his slugging isn't the greatest. So this is a spot where he has a lot of upside, but he could also get blown up. So you have to decide if you're on the Texas bats or if you're on Canning. But when looking at what Vegas is saying, Canning's a 162 favorite, and his team's got a 5.28 implied run total, while Texas only has a 4.22 implied run total. So when you factor in the Vegas lines and you factor in Canning's ability to strike people out on top of the strikeout numbers that this Texas team displays, he's a spot you got to have interest in today, and he comes in at the mid-price range at 7.2 on Fanduel. And when looking at him over on DraftKings, to compare salaries here, he's coming in at a 8.2 price tag. So, you factor in the fact that he's in the mid-range on FanDuel, and then he's got that 1,000 price increase over on DraftKings. It just makes him even more likable on FanDuel today. So Canning's definitely a guy that I'm going to have interest in. As I mentioned, you could also have some interest in the Texas bats because of his hard contact rate, but Vegas is telling us that they like him in this spot, so I'm going to go ahead and endorse Canning today. And next on our list of guys you can target, and one that I really like, is that in Antonio Senzatella. And why do I like him? Because of his matchup. He gets to take on a Seattle Mariners team who we love to target. They strike out a ton. And when looking at his numbers, you can see that, he's got... So when I say I want to target him, let's dial that back. I just want to be clear lightly. I mean, because you can see he's only got a 15.1% K rate, but it's the ground ball, the fly ball, the walk, and the hard hit rate that are good. So he's a guy that allows the ball to be put in play a lot, but he doesn't get himself in trouble, or he doesn't get killed or knocked around the yard. So, and with that being said, it's really just about the matchups. He's taking on a Seattle team that strikes out a ton, and you might be able to take advantage of his matchup. He's 7.5. He's in the mid-price range. I'm not saying he's an elite play, but he's an option to throw in there that will allow you to spend up for some bats if you want to spend in the mid-price range for pitching. And he's taking on a Seattle team that strikes out a lot. And my last two options are in these next two games. One being Zach Greinke, who's taking on the Oakland A's, and Greinke's a well-known name around the league. He's established himself, and when looking at his numbers, he's got a 23.3% K rate. Not the greatest, but it's it's the Sierra, the ERA, the fly ball, and the walk rate that really stand out. He's just a solid all around. He's a really good life pitcher. Fantasy, his appeal can be limited based on his matchup, but he gets a good one today, and he gets one that there's a lot of strikeouts. This Oakland A's team, they are designed to kill left-handed pitching. Actually, for the most part, they're all guys with heavy splits against lefties, outside of Matt Olson. Matt Olson's the scariest threat against Greinke, but Olson has a high strikeout rate. So, these are the reasons that I'm interested in Greinke. And then not to mention he's going into Oakland, which is a good pitcher's park. And, when looking at his splits against lefties, it's really impressive. So, that Matt Olson threat that we had mentioned isn't much of a factor because, he's really good against left-handed hitters. So, yeah, Greinke's a guy to have interest in. And then last on my list would be that in Julio Urias taking on the San Francisco Giants. And the San Francisco Giants are also a team that strikes out a ton. He's the top favorite on the slate at a 264 favorite. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Dodgers are in a great spot hitting-wise here. But at the end of the day, he's a heavy favorite. He comes out at an 8-1 price tag. The only thing we got to keep an eye on is if there's any pitch limitations. So I'll be on the lookout for that, and I can tweet out some updates to you guys if I see anything. But just keep an eye on pitch limitations because these Dodgers seem to be wanting to be very careful with their pitching. So when looking at Urias's numbers, you'll see that he comes in at a 26% K rate. He's got a 2.38 ERA, which is very impressive. A 14% swinging strike rate, which tops the slate. So that's very significant because when we're talking swinging strikes, we're talking pitches that are in the zone enough to be swung at and being effective. It's a great stat to look at for guys that are going to be going out there and getting strikeouts, especially against teams that strike out a ton and aren't the most disciplined, which is the matchup we have today in the San Francisco Giants. So that adds to the appeal for Urias in this spot. He's got a 25.3% against righties, and then moving further along, he's got a 27.6 against lefties. So he's even better against lefties. But the hard hit rate, the fly ball, and the ground ball aren't the greatest against lefties, while against righties, they're actually better. So, he's got a higher K rate against lefties, but he's actually given up some hard contact to those lefties that can mash. So when looking at the Giants lineup, there's really only one guy in the lineup that concerns me with those splits, and that's Mikey Stremski. But then you look down the order, and everyone else is a righty, and pretty much everyone has a high K rate. So, yeah, you factor in that he's a 264 favorite. You factor in the swinging strike rate. You factor in that he's better against righties, and you factor in that they're rolling out a ton of righties, that being San Francisco. And you got to like the spot. And then you factor in that he's 8-1 on Fanduel. That's very affordable. The only thing that's going to stop me from being all in on this play is if we find out the Dodgers are going to limit him in some manner or another. So once again, follow me on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account and you're playing daily fantasy sports, you should probably change that. Twitter is very important, not only for baseball, but for other sports. I know we're just talking baseball right now, but hop on the Twitter machine. It's important. So yeah, that's my breakdown on our pitching options on this slate, and let's start breaking down some bats we like today. When looking at the bats, the easiest way is to just go ahead and sort my Sierra sheet, or sort my sheet by Sierra, I should say. Sierra, if you don't know what it is, it's a metric stat that pretty much just breaks down how good a pitcher's been in the past, and it projects how good they're going to be in the future. If there's any of these stats you don't know, there's a glossary over on Fangraphs that you can check out, and then I'll explain it to you. And you can gain access to this spreadsheet by becoming a patron of mine over on Patreon, link in the description. And so yeah, I just want to give you an idea of why I'm doing this and why this is what we want to sort by when we're targeting hitters. And the very first spot that sticks out to me today is that in the Philadelphia Phillies, taking on Kyle Wright. Kyle Wright's a guy, we're dealing with a 31 innings pitch sample size, but he's been struggling. Looking at his splits against righties, they're less than impressive. And then lefties, it gets even worse. I mean, the slugging, the hard hit rate, and the WOBA against lefties is absolutely absurd. In a good way for, if you're targeting these bats, you love to see that. And when looking at guys you're going to want to target, we have an elite guy in Bryce Harper. So Bryce Harper pops off the page right away today. Love him. And then you got Didi Gregorius and Jay Bruce in this order. And then, you can definitely target the righties too. We looked at his splits. They're less than impressive across the board. So the guys with power. So I have interest in this, really 1 through 8. I really do like all these guys. The 9 spot in Hasley is, he's a lefty, so we can like him as well. Just, the premier names for the splits category, you got to like Bryce Harper, you got to like Didi Gregorius, and you got to like Jay Bruce. All guys that can slug right-handed pitching. And then, when we're dealing with the other top guys, my top options are going to be that and Andrew McCutchen and Rhys Hoskins. And then you can have a ton of interest in Scott Kingery at the second base position because he's only 2.1 on FanDuel. He's got a lot of wheels on the base paths, so he's got stolen base upside, and he's got some pop in his bat. So, at that price tag in his matchup, I like Kingery a lot today, factoring in that he's a second baseman. And Gene Segura is a third baseman that's 2.6, so he's a salary relief guy that you could be looking at. There's definitely some other third basemen on the slate with more pop, but he's only 2.6, so you're not paying up for him at a position where you usually have to pay up quite a bit. Second on the list in pitchers we would like to target today is that in Ryan Weber. Weber's taking on the Toronto Blue Jays, who come in. There's no Vegas lines out yet, but they get to go into Fenway Park in Boston. So they're the away team. They'll get that guaranteed top of the ninth appearance. And when looking at Weber's splits, he's a guy. Well, first of all, across the board, he's really terrible in the K rate department, and he's really terrible in the swinging strike rate. His fly ball and his ground ball is respectable, and his hard hit rate's very good. So he allows the ball to be hit a lot, but he limits the hard contact. And then against righties, he really excels. But it's the lefties that get him. A 5.96 slugging against lefties and a 4.11 WOBA, that's not going to get the job done, and that's going to give us a ton of interest in these left-handed hitters on the Blue Jays, especially at their price tags. Cavan Biggio comes in at a 3.5 price tag at second base. Love him. Rowdy Tello's at 2.8. Love him. Travis Shaw at third base. He's a guy that he's kind of fallen off the map in recent, the last recent year or so. So he seems to be struggling overall, but he does have the power. It's just a matter of the contact. But as we had discussed, when looking at Weber's numbers against lefties, he really doesn't get any strikeouts. So that's going to make me like him. I don't want to contradict myself. I know I can sound a little back and forth, just breaking this down. So Shaw is a guy that's up in the air, but with the low strikeout rate and with the power he displays, you got to have interest in him. So yeah, Weber's mainly a splits heavy guy. So really the lefties I'm targeting. You do have some elite talent in Bo Bichette. So if you want to throw him in the lineup, in your lineups, at 3.2 in the shortstop position, I understand the appeal there. And then moving further along, a guy that I actually took his numbers off my sheet because we only have a 1 innings pitch sample size, and it was skewing my numbers a little bit. But Jorge Guzman taking on the Mets, I like the Mets a lot today, and that's because the Marlins pitching staff is terrible and their bullpen is terrible. So no matter how long this Guzman kid's going, I'm guessing he's not going to last long, and then these Mets are going to get the tee off on him. So like I had mentioned, we only had a 1 innings pitch sample size, so not much to work with. I went ahead and removed him. So, we can't really break down his splits and that kind of thing yet, but I can guarantee you one thing: this bullpen's bad and the Mets are in a good spot. So who are you going to want to target? You're going to want to target, they're very well priced too. I really like the 1 through 4. I really like the 1 through 5, I should say, to be honest with you. And then 6 through 9 you can throw in if you need to finish off your stack and for salary relief. But I like Nimmo a lot. I like Conforto a lot. I like Pete Alonso a lot. I like Dominic Smith a lot. And I like JD Davis a lot. So, I definitely like the Mets today. Mainly the 1 through 5. I like Nimmo, Conforto, Alonso, Dominic Smith, and JD Davis. Those are the guys, both at the top of the order and with the best power upside in this lineup. And then moving further along, the Minnesota Twins are in an absolute great spot. They get to go into Kansas City with 84-degree temp and 12-mile-an-hour winds blowing out the left and take on Jakob Younes, who, when looking at his numbers, you can see he's not terrible, but he's less than impressive. And he's a guy that we can target as far as hard contact. He's got a 41.8% hard contact rate. And when looking at his splits, he's below average against righties. And then lefties, he gives up even more hard contact. The ground ball and the fly ball is better against lefties, but the hard contact's worse. And then righties, he's pretty below average across the board. But, the appeal really is that in the Minnesota lineup. They're a lineup that just absolutely rakes up and down. And, when looking at the price tags, Kepler got a price bump finally. He was a guy that we were able to play at like 3.1K for a while there, but he's finally priced up. So that's going to dampen the appeal as far as price, but I don't care. Go ahead and get him in the lineup if you can at all possible because he's in a great spot. And, really, I would say, 1 through 5 again. And then you could throw in Mitch Garver in the 7th spot. He's got power. We mostly like to target him against lefties, but You know, when Junis gets pulled from this game, if Minnesota gets to him early, the Kansas City bullpen is the worst in the league. Their bullpen is terrible. So we like to target that Kansas City bullpen. That makes us happy. We like to, you know, get that starting pitcher out and then have our stack going against the Kansas City Royals bullpen. If the Twins are able to get Junis out of this game early, I can promise you the rest of the game you're just going to be real happy with what happens. So that's the goal. That's the target. Target these Minnesota Twins. You know, 1 through 5. Kepler, Polanco, Cruz, Rosario, Sano are my top options. And when looking at the price tags, you know, Polanco, Rosario, and Sano at 3K, that's too cheap. So those guys especially, and you know, Kepler and Cruz are the elite options, but their price tags are more appropriate. And then moving further along, you know, when we're looking at these run totals that pop out today, you know, we have 2 more premier options on the slate. And that is the number 1, the Los Angeles Angels, who get to go into Texas on the road and take on Jordan Lyles. And when looking at Lyles' numbers, we can see, you know, once again, a below-average pitcher against righties. He's average, you know, in the ground ball and fly ball rate, but the WOBA, the hard, and the slugging is below average. And then moving over to lefties, kind of the same deal. So, you know, he's not terrible, but he's not good, and we definitely have some guys in this lineup that we can target. You know, my main targets are going to be obviously in the middle of the order. You know, Mike Trout and Rondon are our preferred options, but they are priced up. These price tags are, you know, they're appropriate for those 2 guys. But then Ohtani and Upton are too cheap. You know, 3.1 and 2.8, and then Fletcher at 3.4 is, I would say he's also appropriately priced. But Tommy La Stella is a guy with some pop, and he's at 2.5 at the second base spot. So I like some Tommy La Stella today, and then Brian Goodwin at 3K. He's got pop. Albert Pujols at 2.9 has been hot, and Jason Castro at the number 9 spot has some power. So I actually like these cheap price tags in this Angels lineups today. That they actually are sticking off the page. You know, that 5 through 9 range. I mean, obviously, you know, we want to be playing Trout and Rendon if at all possible. But I could see if you want to pay up for some pitching today, go ahead and throw those, you know, those lower priced guys in your lineups. They all have some pop and they're all in a good matchup. So yeah, I like the Angels. And the top spot of the slate is very obvious, but we have to mention it because it's just absolutely great for these Dodgers today. Yeah, man. Jeff Samardzija going into LA. This lineup is absolutely stacked. The only problem we have is, you know, the top of the lineup, they're priced up. You know, Fanduel's done a very good job of pricing these guys up. But with that being said, you know, kind of similar to the Angels, these guys down here can absolutely rake too, and they're only in like the 3K range. You know, Jock Peterson and AJ Pollock, and you know, guys in the bottom of the lineup. You could definitely have interest in him. But you know, let's go ahead and look at Samardzija's numbers. You can see he's 3rd worst in the slate in the Sierra department. Ton of fly balls given up. Doesn't strike anyone out. And that is not going to be good taking on this Dodgers lineup. Against righties, you can see, you know, he's not, for his numbers against righties, he's not terrible. But the lefties, he is scary bad. You love the lefties here. Yeah, get me some Dodgers lefties today. And, you know, Max Muncy, love him. Cody Bellinger, love him. Corey Seager, love him. Jock Peterson, love him. Matthew Beatty, love him. Get me those lefties today against Samardzija, guy that struggles against lefties, and I'm going to be real happy. And really give me anyone in this lineup. You know, we're dealing with price tags too, so you can throw in the 3-2 Justin Turner to complete your stack. You know, Mookie's a premier bat at 4.2, and then you got AJ Pollock at 3K. But I like these lefties. I mean, Max Muncy, Jock Peterson, these guys, you know. I'm going to try to throw in my home run call every day from now on. You know, my top option, that's my most guaranteed to hit a home run today. And today it's definitely Max Muncy at the top of this order. I love Muncy. The Dodgers like to throw him in that leadoff spot against right-handed pitching. You know, he's a guy with power. He's not your traditional leadoff hitter. He doesn't really have the speed, but that's not the way these Dodgers roll. They like to play their right-left matchups because they just have guys that rake up and down. And being that he's in the leadoff spot, they have to come to him, and he's got that power. So that just makes me like him even more. Max Muncy's hitting a home run tonight, so that's my call for my home run. My home run call of the slate. Love me some Max Muncy. Get him in your lineups. And, that's pretty much my breakdown of our top options for bats. I definitely want to give you guys one more option to stack here, and that option is going to be actually in this first game that we discussed with the Phillies, and that's the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves come in with a 4.75 implied run total. They go into Philly, and Philly is a great hitter's park. So, that just makes me like them even more, and they're on the road, so they're going to get the hit in the top of the ninth guaranteed. And when looking at Vincent Velasquez's numbers, you'll see, where is Velasquez? We're dealing with a 267 innings pitched sample size, and he's very respectable in the K rate, the swing and strike department, but the ground ball, the fly ball, and the hard hit rate is where he struggles. He's got that 27.5 clip against righties, but the hard contact's still there. And then moving over to lefties, he's below average across the board. So righties that rake, a lot of interest in, and I definitely have interest in the lefties as well. But, our premier options are that and Ronald Acuna, Dansby Swanson, and Marcell Ozuna. And, Marcell Ozuna and Dansby Swanson, as far as I'm concerned, are underpriced. They're in the low 3K range. That's too cheap. And then a guy at the bottom of the order like Adam Duvall, who has a lot of pop you could play too. And Freddie Freeman and Nick Markakis in the middle order, you've got to have interest in them. We had mentioned Velasquez's splits, and we prefer to target him or target Velasquez with right-handed hitters, but Freddie's an elite hitter, so I don't care. Get him in those stacks. And yeah, so that's my breakdown of today's slate. Quick little overview. I definitely have interest in both sides of this Atlanta and Phillies game. As far as bats are concerned, moving further along, I have interest in this New York Mets squad a lot, taking on this Miami Marlins pitching staff and bullpen. They get to face Guzman, but then they're going to switch it over to that bullpen, like the Mets a lot today. Love the Toronto Blue Jays lefties against Weber. Love the Minnesota Twins, 1 through 5, a lot of interest, and then you can definitely throw in the bottom of the order as well to finish out some stacks because they're going to get to take on the worst bullpen in the league in the Kansas City Royals. One guy for pitching that I should have mentioned earlier that I'm going to throw in now is Aaron Savali of the Cleveland Indians taking on the White Sox. They have a high strikeout rate, and when looking at Savali's numbers, we'll see that he's got a 23.3% K rate, so he's a little bit on the average side, but taking on the Chicago White Sox team that strikes out a ton, I have to mention him. So just wanted to throw him in there. Have interest in him. And, Trevor Bauer is a guy you have to have interest in, top pitcher of the slate. The Los Angeles Angels, I had mentioned, especially the bottom of the order, there's some pop in, the price tags are cheap, so I kind of like going ahead and playing some of those cheaper Angels today. And then Zach Greinke, I have interest in for pitching. Antonio Senzatella, I have slight interest in due to his matchup. And I absolutely love the Los Angeles Dodgers today. Mainly the lefties, so get Muncy, get Bellinger, get Seager, get Jock, get Beede, get all these lefties in, and really get any Dodgers in. But we prefer the lefties and definitely play Max Muncy today. Max Muncy is going deep, hitting a home run. That's my call. And so, yeah, that's my breakdown of today's slate. If you guys enjoy the content, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of future videos. If you're interested in my Patreon package, I really do appreciate you joining me over there. Link in the description. It helps support me, and I think you're going to get some valuable content that's going to help you with your lineups. You can go ahead and follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS. And that is all from me today. Good luck tonight, everyone, and have a good one.